All right, guys, we are back with Wayne from Starlight Instruments, not to be confused with Starlight Express, because I've got a very bad habit of doing that too, so slap on the wrist for me. So Starlight Instruments. Okay, so Wayne, tell us a little bit about yourself for those guys at home who are watching who probably don't know who you are.
I work at Starlight Instruments. People ask me what I do best, or what's my job title. I tell them I'm the janitor. I'll do anything that needs to be done. At a small business, you have to do a little bit of everything. I'm kind of the communicator. I do the sales, I do the tech. I don't do any assembly. I don't do any machining. I'll do the shipping, the receiving. Anything that needs done, I will do. I've been at Starlight for 12 years now. My previous 21 and a half years was in the auto industry doing aftermarket accessories for a large GM dealership group. So I took that mentality of working with vendors into Starlight. Now we work with OEM and distributors. So understanding how the consumers and the resellers work, now I took that information and can communicate better with the dealer network now.
So, you know, the funny thing here is, for as long as I've known Starlight Instruments, every time I have to call you guys, it's always you on the phone. It's never anybody else. But obviously, this is not a one-man band. Tell us who else is behind the scenes.
The owner's name is John Joseph. He bought Starlight in 2007 from the original founder, Detlef Werner Schmidt, who designed a product outside of Chicago in this area in Schaumburg, Illinois. Werner developed a product for himself. He's an engineer. I think it was Motorola where his background was. And his local astronomy club seen what he was doing and seen what he had. So he started selling them. Next thing you know, it steamrolled downhill and he couldn't keep up with the demand. So he went to John in like late 2006, early 2007 and told him, I got two options. I'm either going to close the business or sell you the business. At that point, Starlight didn't even exist, or we didn't exist. We were a machine shop and we machined parts for him. Right. So in June of 2007, John actually bought the business Starlight Instruments. It was Starlight Instruments INC, now it's Starlight Instruments LLC. So if you have a 2-inch focuser and you want to know the date, if it says INC, it's pre-2007. So John's the owner. He's a machinist by trade. He will take a part and make it better, make it shinier, make tweaks to it to make it perform better. Then we have Chad. Chad is our lead machinist, writes all of our programs, does the majority of our machine setups. We have a gentleman named Dietrich who does machining and will do assembling. So he kind of floats back and forth between the departments. Josh is our lead assembler. Eddie is our gentleman's been with us for like 14 years. So he's like 2 years longer than I am. He's semi-retired, but he works for us a couple days a week. We have Chris in our accounting department, and Owen does our anodizing. We do anodizing in-house, which is something most people don't realize. We do everything in-house, design, manufacture, assemble. Everything's done in one building at our facility.
That's actually quite amazing because not a lot of people do in-house anodization. A lot of companies that I know of here in the US that make something always send it out, which is great because that means you guys have a level of quality control over your products. So you know everything is always going to meet a minimum requirement, which is what this talk is actually about. Is most people who buy a telescope, they don't really think about upgrading or changing the scope itself. And to me, a scope is only as good as its weakest link. Now, I'm not talking about the accessories like the finder scope or the dovetail and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking specifically about the focuser. And that's what your guys' forte is. Go into a little bit more depth about, why should I buy a focuser?
You take like an SCT, for instance. They come with a single speed focuser. So if you want to do any type of imaging, one, how do you attach a motor drive or electronics to a single speed focuser and get fine resolution? You can't, or it's not easy. So on an SCT, our microfocusers is a great cost-effective little upgrade where you go from a single speed to a dual speed. With that, with our tight tolerances we hold, we can help reduce some of your image shift. With a stock focuser, you're hooked right to the mirror shaft. So when the mirror's moving or you have vibrations, you have movement. So it's real hard to do astrophotography with a standard focuser on an SCT. Then you take a telescope in, say, the 120 to 130 millimeter range. Most of the stock focusers are set to lift 3 to 5 pounds at the most. You take a medium-sized camera, you take some other accessories, off-axis guider, filter wheels, you can get 15 pounds pretty easy. I got an email on Thursday from a guy who said, I want to upgrade to your focuser, but it has to lift 20 pounds. It's that very heavy image train where no stock focuser can lift that kind of weight. And for as a lot of the import manufacturers of telescopes, where's their weakest? Where can they save money? It's not how do you improve something? How can you make it cheaper? Well, they cut production in the focuser, which is good for us. Right. But unfortunately, it's bad for the consumer because now they just spent $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000 on a telescope. Now they found out they got to invest another $800 to $1,000 on a higher quality focuser. If it came as an OEM standard, they may have been able to save $400 or $500.
So there is a reason why your focusers are known as feather touch, and I believe you have a sample of one of the focusers there. Now, it's going to be very hard for you guys at home to understand this unless you are fiddling around with it, but you can see the difference. So if you grab your focuser, I got to go grab my focuser real quickly. Okay. It was close by, and I just realized when I walked into the other room, I didn't pick it back up. So give me 1 second. Let me go grab it.
Okay.
Sorry, when I was in the bathroom, went to the bathroom, I had it in my hand and I set it down and I didn't actually pick it back up and bring it back in here. So I actually have a standard stock focuser from a telescope, and some of you are going to recognize it, but I'm not going to say who it is. But this is basically something that you would normally get on a telescope of some description. It's a standard rack and pinion Crayford focuser or whatever the case may be. This particular one, I think it's a Crayford. Yes, this is a Crayford focuser.
You sure about that? Rack that back out again. I think it may be rack and pinion.
It's a Crayford, I think.
Oh, it is Crayford. I thought that was a rack on the back on that draw tube.
Yeah. No, I get confused by it too. But this one here there's a reason why it's lying around, because the sheer amount of aggravation that I've had to deal with this. And here's a prime example, and this emulates weight capacity very, very quickly. You can see it's quite stiff, which means that trying to dial in fine focus can be very, very difficult. And here's the problem. When I release all of this stuff, it just slips and falls all over the place. And I end up having to tweak with all of this stuff to try and get it in place before it even moves. I'm turning this, just so you can see this. You can see that I'm trying to turn this and it's not moving. So I have to start really futzing with this before it starts to move. And this is a prime example of, I would say, it's not a terrible focuser, but it could be better. So where's your little sample?
At my sample right here. All right, so we're going to compare apples and apples. This is a Crayford as well.
Yep.
So Crayford means it's friction driven. So here's our friction plate on the back side of it, and we have roller bearings mounted on the inside. We actually have a patent on this design. For instance, on the focuser you have, when you tighten that brake, you're tightening a thumb screw against a pinion shaft. Yep. That's what's holding it in place. So if you're trying to lift 4 or 5 pounds, you have an 1/8 inch screw tip going against a pinion shaft. That's the only thing that's holding it in place. Our brake lever is actually a system. There's about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches brass lever on the inside of our pinion shaft here. So when you tighten the thumb screw down, you're putting pressure on over 1 inch area of a pinion shaft to help hold it in place instead of one little 1/8 inch spot. So that's where we get our holding capacity. And then as far as our lifting capacity, it comes from our tolerances, extremely tight tolerance. I can manually push this down but it's not going to drop by itself. It actually takes pressure to go up and down.
Right. Whereas this guy, it's already doing it by itself. As soon as I let go, it just wants to fall.
Yeah. And you can adjust them to a point. You can make them by tightening adjustment screws on it, but the problem is you make them so tight, then you can't move them. Then you make them loose, loosen set screws, then they move by themselves. So with that type of focuser on a diode Newtonian or even a refractor, you're going to be very difficult to have repeatability with photography or even just visual.
Right.
It just can't lift a weight.
Now, the other thing here is with a feather touch focuser is I've noticed when you're playing around with these knobs, it even feels different. And here's the thing, that in cold weather, when you're using this in like regular warm temperature, it's not that difficult. It's very easy to manipulate because your hands are quite, malleable in that sense. But when it's cold or you're outside in that sense and you're tired, the last thing you want to do is try to do any type of fine focus, especially with cold hands. And that's one of the things about the feather touch is it doesn't matter what the weight is, you don't feel it.
Correct. We use some custom designed lubricants and greases in our planetary assembly and all of our focusers, stuff that's hundreds and hundreds of dollars a gram, extremely expensive, but we know it lasts. I have customers contact me and I need to oil mine, I need to grease mine, can I use Vaseline, can I use any type of lubricant, WD-40? Please don't. Call me. I will send you a little vial if need be, just because a lot of those other lubricants attract dirt, attract impurities. Once you get any type of grit inside your reduction assembly, you're going to feel bumps, you're going to feel resistance, you're going to feel clicks. So please don't use some of the over-the-counter Vaselines type lubricants. They'll do way more harm than good long-term because they just attract so much other dirt and dust. If you're in a Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona environment where you have so much dirt and pollution in the air.
So how much maintenance is required on these focusers? I mean, to be honest, I've had plenty of feather touch focusers, and I still have one on one of my other setups, but for as long as I've had it, and I live in California, so it's dusty out here, I have never maintained it once. How often should we maintain it, if we should even maintain it, by the sounds of things? None.
Really, they're maintenance free. When we do like star parties, like Okie-Tex, for example, is a very popular star party in the Midwest. Unfortunately, it was just canceled, which would have been, I think, in September. We go there every year. We do a lot of repairs where it's so dusty, dirty, where we actually take a lot of parts and replace parts, and we just replace stuff just because the guide rails, like on this focuser here, we have guide rails on the side. They get a lot of dirt buildup. You can use like denatured alcohol to just clean that. But as far as tightening set screws, you shouldn't have to do that unless you're trying to lift a very heavy image train. And then you can always contact us and I'll give you some pointers on what to adjust. And our adjustments are 1 to 2 degrees at a time, not a quarter of a turn. They're very, very small. It doesn't take much because our tolerances are so tight.
So go through the different types of focusers that you guys manufacture, because it's not just, stuff like this. I mean, you obviously have rack and pinion as well.
Sure. This is our 2-inch Crayford focuser. I brought one of our micro focusers for an SCT, where this just replaces the stock knob itself, gives you the dual speed focuser on the end. Our micro people ask, what size motor do I need on your micro focusers? It's the same reduction assembly as what we use in our 2-inch focusers. If I can hold these up here, the reduction assemblies are the same. So that's 2 types of focusers. And then we have our biggest one, which is our 3.5-inch rack and pinion focuser. This focuser can lift and hold 18 to 20 pounds. So if somebody has an extremely heavy image train, whether it be on a tech scope, a Takahashi 130, even an FSQ 106 ED, that will support the weight.
So here's another good thing about your focusers is you have your standard 2-inch size compression ring, but you guys go one step further. You even have adapters and fittings specifically for all threaded systems, so there are no compression rings, so there's no sag, no nothing. Go through some of the information on that. It's not just like a one-stop shop. You've got more than just that one little thing there, if that makes sense.
Sure. On our 2-inch focusers rack, we have a 2-inch Crayford and 2-inch rack and pinion. Those are end in a compression ring. That's it. There's not a threaded option or a different type of option. Our 1.25-inch, we have an 1.25-inch focuser, which who would have thought in today's society, or why would somebody want an 1.25-inch focuser? Well, it ends in a T thread, an M42 thread, and a compression ring. So if somebody has a small knob, they don't want to invest a whole lot of money. The lump 50 millimeter it's a great addition. The 6 1/8-inch RC, the small Mead 8s, Celestron 8s, our 1.25-inch focusers work very well on those, and they don't take up much back focus, so they're short. Then we go to our rack and pinion focusers. This one here has a compression ring end cap, but if I would undo the set screws, there's 3 grub screws on top that lock it down. I can unscrew the end cap on this, which allows me to change to a threaded connection. So if somebody has, let's say, for instance, a 127 millimeter telescope, and they're using it on telescope X. Now I bought a 130 millimeter. Can I use the same focuser? Absolutely. It's a different adapter. This one here has a threaded adapter on it, but we could change on our focuser a different adapter to fit a different telescope. In turn, if they're going from a 65 threaded reducer to a 72 or a 92 or an astrophysics threaded reducer, we can change the end cap as well. So their same $1,000 investment, within $300, they can use that same focuser on a whole complete new telescope and change the adapter and the end cap out. So when people want to upgrade, it's a huge investment if they spend a $3,000, $4,000 on a telescope, but they can use that focuser 10 plus years without any issues and switch out different accessories to allow it to work on multiple different telescopes.
Right, and all they have to do is get the adapter for the particular scope, with barring any other minor limitations here and there. Obviously, you can't necessarily put a 3-inch gigantic focuser on a tiny little ATED or something like that. You know, you have to have some level of common sense there.
Yeah, if they're used, I'm not picking on any telescope manufacturers, but if they have an Explorer Scientific 127, it's a great little scope. Stock focuser has a lot to be desired, in my opinion. But then they go to a Skywatcher 120, 150. That same focuser is interchangeable. Again, you switch the adapter. You can switch the end cap if need be because of different correctors. So for about $300, you're reusing your $1,000 investment on a completely new scope.
I mean, we're not really pegging anybody, but I mean, Scott Roberts himself will even turn around and say that part of having the scope is you're growing with it, and more often than not, I mean, even Scott would recommend using a Starlight Instruments focuser anyway.
Sure.
But more often than not, people run off and buy things that, to me, is like, dude, you just skipped something about your scope. I know you just spent $2 grand, $3 grand, $4 grand, whatever you spent on there. Instead of blowing a ton of money on this thing that may or may not help you in the long run, grab and change out the focuser first. And to me, that is the biggest investment. It's the first thing I think about when I stare at my scope and like, I need to get a better focuser already. It's just an instinct that I have by default now. So majority of the times, I will just go gravitating towards the Feather Touch because, like I said, I've actually got one lying around that has been on the back of multiple scopes.
Sure. I at NEAF a couple years ago at the Northeast Astronomy Forum, I had a guy in our booth ask and telling us he's got our focuser on a Tech 140, was wanting some guidance on the mount, on the camera. And through his whole story, he had over $20,000 of equipment sitting in his garage. He was scared to put it together. He bought too much and didn't know what to do. He didn't start small. Another customer overheard the conversation. He said, I have that same scope. He's like, what mount do you have? He said the mount. He's like, I have the same mount. He's like, where do you live at? They were within an hour of each other. He's like, let's set an appointment. I will come to your house. I will get you up and running. So I followed that communications with them. They got up and running. But start small. Don't try to switch the focuser, switch the camera, switch the filter wheel, switch the guider, switch everything, because it's information overload. You're going
Right.
to configure yourself one thing at a time. Once you are have that down pat, you understand all the nuances of it, go to the next step. Don't try to change 3-4 things at one time. You're just going to be such a learning curve.
Exactly.
You're going to frustrate yourself.
It's funny because that's what me and Chuck and the rest of the audience watching at home, that's what we were basically discussing, because I played one of his videos that demonstrates just that. It's like he's just got a room full of junk that he doesn't use, doesn't know what it's for, didn't even know he bought it half the time.
Yep.
So I totally know the feeling. So I know everybody on the live chat is asking me about motorizing the focuser. I knew that was going to happen, and I'm not ignoring you guys. We're getting to that point, but we will get to it in just 1 second. There is still a couple of things that we still need to cover with the focusers, so just bear with us, okay? We will get to that part. So Wayne, if you want to share your screen, and let's go to the website real quick now. And hopefully your webcam doesn't disconnect. I know we're having some minor tweaking issues with that, but we'll worry about that if it disconnects. So if you want to click on screen share. And let's go to the Starlight Instruments site.
Okay.
Okay. So go through real quick how a person buys one of the focusers, because this is the part that I mean, you guys did a training program with us, and we pointed this out, and I know you've gone out of your way to address these issues, but the biggest things that we've had has always been, how do we find things? I know what scope I have, but I don't necessarily know which focuser, which sizes I can do, and if I do have to think in the future, I might buy this or that. Go through the site so they can have a better idea of how we can figure this out.
Okay, our website is starlightinstruments.com. I'm on the home page now. Something I want to show, most people don't know about this new focuser we just designed, because NEAF didn't happen. We're going to release it at NEAF. If people can understand a typical focuser, you have the draw tube, which goes in and out of the focuser housing. What keeps that draw tube centered? Normally you're going to have an adjustment nut or two, and you'll have on the inside of the focuser housing some type of shim tape, Teflon tape, something to take up tolerances to make that draw tube stay in place. And that's the design we've always had, and most companies that make focusers kind of copied our design. Our Gen 2 focuser is slightly different. There's 3 sets of adjustment screws. On the draw tube, there is 3 flat lines from the top of that draw tube to the bottom. Now you're putting pressure on a flat spot instead of a round spot. So back to your motor information, you're putting a set screw into a round reduction pin. Sometimes you can have slipping, but now you're putting pressure on flat spots. So this focuser setup with what we call our posi drive motor can lift and hold 56 pounds. It can lift more. We don't have 56 pounds of actually weighted weights at our facility. So if somebody has a real heavy image train, this is the system to go. As we're migrating a whole new line of, it's called our Gen 2 for Generation 2 focusers, which has the flats on the draw tube and the 3 sets of set screws for any type of adjustments need be. Instead of trying to put pressure on a typical focuser, you have a set screw up top here and one below our adapter ring, which customers a lot of times don't even know it's there because it's hidden. So they try to tighten one set screw here. Now they put more pressure on one spot than everything else, and it just messes everything up. So that's kind of a new design that trying to figure out the next big event where we can actually show and tell it. Since NEAF got canceled, we kind of postponed that slightly. But I do have focusers in stock, and we have sold quite a few of them so far.
So is this going to take over and replace all focusers, or is this like another set thing?
It'll be a whole new, different product line, because this is going to come with. We're going to sell as a complete imaging equipment focuser, because it's going to come with the motor drive. It's going to come with our electronic focusing system as a complete system.
Okay, I mean, we'll go into the electronic focusing in a moment, because otherwise we'll be jumping around too much.
Yep.
But again, just going back to this, so If this is going to be a new product line, because I need to remember this too. If
Yes.
this is a new product line, what happens to the old existing focusers when you run out of stock? Does the Gen 2 replace that?
No, because the price difference it's not a big price difference, but it does have a little price difference. A lot of the OEMers won't. They want something a little more cost effective. So we'll always keep our standard system we have here. And this will be for more of the individual side of things. When somebody has a real heavy image train where they know they're going to push 15 pounds plus all day or all night long.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is more high. Well, I don't want to say high end. It's just more the crazy person that wants to hang, I don't know, his coffee thermos on the back of his focuser for whatever reason.
An S-Big 11,000 camera, a filter wheel, off-axis guider, or
a small child.
Exactly right. Somebody use it as a instead of going to Planet Fitness or the workout gym, they're going to use this to do pull-ups and push-ups off of.
Okay, let's get into this. All right, so let's go into the products and let's.
So I'm going to go to the product tab here.
Yep.
The biggest cheat sheet or key that I can give customers is our top tab, telescope manufacturer fit chart. This will list the majority of the telescope manufacturers. I'm going to take Takahashi, for instance, here. So if somebody has a Takahashi telescope, they'll find what scope they have. It'll break down the thread size on the tube, what focuser and what adapter is needed. So this will cover most every Takahashi scope there was and there is. So if somebody has something like this, here's their cheat sheet. This sheet will tell them, or this link will tell them all the information they need on what to order. They go to an Explore Scientific. Same type of setup. Explore Scientific makes it a little more difficult because they have different size tubes for the migrations. Where they have carbon, aluminum, with sliding dew shield, without sliding dew shield. They all use different tubes. So this is all the information here as well. So
now,
this
I'm going to point this out. So I noticed that the focuser is almost exactly the same across the board, which just drives back home to the point is when you buy just the focuser, don't think that you are stuck with that focuser for that scope. You can, when you upgrade, go to something else. And if you look through this matrix, the chances are FTF3035B will probably work on XYZ scope. So again, I want people to understand that at home, that this is not a buy it once and you've got to go buy another one if you get another scope. It can be used on other scopes.
Absolutely. If somebody has like 90 millimeter to a 130 millimeter refractor, the FTF, which stands for Feather Touch Focuser, the first two numbers, 3.0 means it's a 3-inch. The 3.5 means that the draw tube travel. It's a 3.5-inch travel. The B and A means body and accessories. So that's how our nomenclature reads. But if they have a 90 to a 130 millimeter telescope, they can use that same focuser on multiple different scopes. Again, switching out the adapter, switching out the end cap if need be. Mm-hmm. So they can recoup their investment. Telescopes are like cars. People rotate them so often. Put the stock focuser back on your telescope, sell that through the classifieds or however they do, but don't sell the Feather Touch with the scope. You typically will not recoup your value.
Right. So yeah, so
go ahead.
No, carry on.
Sure. Even like Lunt. Lunt sells our focusers as a standard. So a lot of the people at the solar scopes will come with our focusers. But here's again just a little cheat sheet, shows the focuser and the telescope, the focuser, and the adapter that is needed on this. TeleVue, kind of the same way. Since 2012, every telescope sold by TeleVue has my pinion assembly on it. It doesn't look like our conventional pinion assembly, but it does. We machine the cosmetic parts to their specifications, but the inner workings are still all of our parts.
So it's almost like you don't need to do an upgrade for a TeleVue unless you really wanted to.
You don't. Anything 2012 and newer has our parts on. Anything older than that they can upgrade them. Especially if they have their old 6:1 ratio where they can upgrade it to a 10:1 and then motorize it that way. When people want to motorize, it's so much, our parts are standard throughout the last 10 years. So when you try to put a motor on a non-Feather Touch focuser, a lot of those pin size and housing size where you clip your motor down are so many different tolerances. It's very hard to have repeatability because you don't have a good fit.
Right.
So a lot of people will upgrade to the Feather Touch, whether they use my motor drive or motor drive from somebody else, but at least they have a true fit at that point, and that's a basis to start off from. And you're trying to get into astrophotography, you learn software, and then you have issues. Where's that movement coming from? Coming from the focuser, coming from the motor, coming from the software. People can get overwhelmed real easy.
So I've got two questions here back to back that are related to what we're doing right now. So as opposed to jumping around here, let's deal with these right now. Dilip Sharon, I apologize if I butcher your names. How do I find the focuser for a Skywatcher Newtonian 200 PDS, which is the European version, I think, if it says PDS on the end of it? On your chart, it says it's the FTF 2025 BCR, but how do I go to it?
Okay.
Oh, I see what he's asking. So he's looking for the FTF 2025 BCR. So now that I know which scope, which focuser it is, what do I do from here?
Okay, if they want to look at the focuser.
So let's just say I want to buy this now with the right adapter. What do I do now?
Okay, they can send us an email. They can place an order through our shopping cart. They can call us. Granted, if they're European, they're probably not going to call because of the time zone differences and the communications. First thing on the adapter. If they have a Skywatcher, I'm going to.
There it is.
Click down to adapters here. The Skywatcher Orion, it's the same scope basically with a different branding. It's like a Chevrolet and a GMC. Same vehicle, different branding. On that particular scope, it will more than likely will need one of these two adapters. The A20-240 has 3 mounting holes in a perfect circle. The A20-241 is that one of their newer ones where they change the stock focuser. The bottom mounting screws in a tab outside of the 360-degree circle. So they're going to probably have one of these, need one of these adapters. If they take off their stock focuser, they'll be able to see exactly how it attaches, because these two adapters attach to their stock base. They don't have to drill new holes. It just attaches using the same mounting holes.
Strangely enough, what he's talking about is exactly this one. What
you have in your hand.
Yeah. What you actually need is an A2240. I only know this is because this is exactly what I did with my scope. The only difference is I have a 12-inch, you have the 8-inch version. So what the adapter is that you would need in this case is the A20240. And in fact, if you go back to the matrix, Wayne, that you had at the top, so the telescope chart, let's click on Skywatcher. Yeah, you're right there.
And I have it listed down here. If you click on these links, it'll even show you pictures of what the stock base looks like without the focusers there.
Yep. So again, if that's how we figure this out. So just like I just showed you, I have the focuser in my hands. I've looked at this part, I know that this one is this. That means I can just grab the 240 version of that adapter and then the correct focuser to fit that.
Yep. And then even on, like, looking at this adapter here, you'll see 3 sets of holes. There'll be a mounting hole at each spot. There will be a leveling screw as well. So if your stock base is not level, you can adjust the adapter by adjusting the leveling screws. Then you'll have 3 mounting screws where the focuser attaches to.
Exactly. So if you don't quite understand what that means here is, this is for getting the plane of your sensor to be square on with the mirror when it comes back. So you've got the tilt adjustment. It's quite a standard thing for any type of telescope to have something like that. So now the next related question is, what would you recommend for the Comet Hunter from Explorer Scientific or their 8-inch carbon fiber Astrograph? So let's do that. Let's go. Go through the matrix.
I want to click on, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to click on adapters. I'm going to click on 2-inch. I don't, some of the smaller scopes like that, I don't list them on the matrix.
Right.
Because there's so many different variations and migrations of that. But I'm going to scroll on the 2-inch adapters. They have a Explorer Scientific 8-inch Astrograph. Here's a little adapter ring right here. This will attach to your stock base again, and then my focuser attaches through the 3 set screws to it.
And this does work on their Comet Hunter as well.
Yes, let me verify that.
It does. I know it.
Okay.
Done it. Yeah, we've done it too.
And make sure I wasn't missing.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Here.
You're not. It's exactly the same. I know it's it's funny because even with this sheer amount of stuff for us, we've done it countless times as well. In fact, there it is right there.
Yep. And what I do is, if there's any questions, I'll have the customers take the stock focuser off and then contact me with the dimension of what the inside base is. So if by chance they had their base was different size, I can machine a little adapter like this to fit their exact base. Again, some of the import focusers don't have such a tight tolerance. I don't want my base to rattle, have a slip fit because it's not going to be a snug fit. I can machine this to match exactly what their inside diameter, their stock base is.
Right. Okay, so now that we've covered the basics on that, this is the part that everyone's gagging about as usual. How do we motorize a feather touch focuser?
I use an SET focuser here. What happens is, using a 1/16 inch hex key, they'll remove the gold fine focus knob, and there'll be a small set screw and a black coarse focus knob. Remove those 2 knobs, exposes my reduction assembly. Once that's exposed, our motors will clamp on the little stainless housing, and then there'll be another screw that attaches a fine focus knob of the motor to the reduction pin. I'm going to pull that tab up now so people kind of understand what our motors look like. We're one of the very few companies that allow you to manually control the focuser with the motor attached. So you have a set screw here in the clamp ring, you have a set screw in the gold fine focus knob. So with my motor attached, you can disengage the clutch of the motor to still manually control your focuser with the motor attached. All the other motors out there, you must remove the motor if you want to do any type of manual focus. Which, depending on what somebody's doing, if they're in their backyard and they want to do a manual setup, our motor's the way to go. If somebody's doing complete remote where they never see their telescope, they're kind of a different setup, but our motors still completely work for them, but the manual override feature won't be a big benefit to them because they're never at their scope.
So how do I identify which motor, HSM stands for handy stepper motor, which motor do I need?
I have it listed here on under the handy motor page. The HSM 20, handy stepper motor, 20 means 2-inch, will fit all of our 2-inch Crayfords and all of our micro focusers, which include the Takahashi and Teleview retrofit focusers. The HSM 30 will fit all 2.5-inch feather touch, 3-inch feather touch, and our true 3-inch feather touch focusers, as well as the Astrophysics 2.7-inch focusers, because we do the pinion assemblies for them. And then the HSM 35 fits our 3.5-inch focuser, as well as the Astrophysics 4-inch focusers, because we do them for them as well.
Right. So that probably just answered one of the other questions somebody just asked. Here's an interesting thing that we don't really shy away from this too much, but I want to mention this. So George is asking for the Explorer Scientific to work with their 3-inch reducer flattener. Which focuser can they get, and can you have the whole thing threaded in?
Yes. I want to click on our focuser tab. Explorer messed it up for us in a good way. When we came out with our 3-inch focuser in 2009 or 2008, 2009, there was no such thing as a 3-inch accessory. So the opening, if you remove the end cap, it's 2.97 inches. So it would not accept a 3-inch accessory. We could not bore out the draw tube anymore without losing structural integrity for a 3-inch accessory. So we came out with a whole complete new focuser called our true 3-inch. It's a 3.2-inch focuser, which will accept a 3-inch accessory. So the focuser with the right adapter connects to the OTA, and then the 3-inch accessory, whether you even television has a 3-inch paracord system, would work in our 3-inch compression ring end cap. So if they want to use a 3-inch accessory, they would need our true 3-inch focuser.
And in some cases, this also means that I can now embed a reducer, flattener into the draw tube, as opposed to have another thing protruding out, chewing away all my focus travel. In some rare cases, on refractors, the refractors are so damn long, but the actual focus movement distance is so limited. With something like the true 3-inch, I can now embed the optics into the focuser and then just go from there, as opposed to it sticking out through the compression ring.
Sure, and any type of setup, my goal is to eliminate parts. The more parts you have, the more variables you have. And then if you have a variable, again, where's your slip? Where's your movement coming from? So if we can decrease the amount of overall components, the more rigid or more sturdy the image train will be, the better photography or visual experience they will have, because there's less frustration involved there. They don't have to troubleshoot where's the movement or where's the slip coming from.
Now, this is one thing I liked about Starlight Instruments, is when I was, with all the times that I've been working with you guys in the last 3 years, is you're listening to the customers, you're listening to the clients, and you're listening to us, the vendors. The biggest thing I think I remember people asking was, how on earth do I motorize a RedCat?
RedCat,
and you guys solved it.
We did. I'm going to click on our tab that says New Product Releases. We came up with the big part of our new product releases come from feedback from customers, from dealers, emails. I have this. You ever thought of this? I had a video chat with a group. The first question as we were winding up the meeting, what is new that I don't know about? And this was in February. This was way before COVID-19 hit. And two of the guys, the 9 that was involved, said the RedCat. I said, what's a RedCat? I have no idea. So through doing some research, okay, I know what it is. I was fortunate enough to get my hands on one. William Yang from William Optics sent me, or we bought one from him for us to do the design for this. It has a helical focuser. So it's a great little cost-effective, whether you use a guide scope or a spotting scope, but you can't control it motorized through a motor or any type of software. So we designed a L bracket, comes off the top of the telescope, which contains one of our handy motors with a pulley and a belt system that goes around the helical focuser. Now you can control it through software. And I have, I don't know if you can see it here, one of the motors right here, and you kind of see where the pulley attaches to.
Yep.
So again, a lot of, if somebody has as busy we are, it's hard for us to create a need. So we take a lot of feedback from customers and work, whether it be a custom part, we try for something, and you know what, we get positive feedback. Okay, let's see if there's a bigger need or demand, whether it be US, whether it be internationally, just through communications. I don't have all the answers. I've been blessed to build up relationships with Simon, like you, with other people that have answers, that have ideas that we can take into an actual product.
Yeah, and the thing here is, as though you guys addressed this in such a brilliant way and did it really quickly, because there was no possibility to do anything for a motorizer. You had to physically be there in order to operate this, and these things, the RedCats sold incredibly well. So for those of you who shop with us already, just so you guys know, we do have these in stock. They are ready to go out the door. There is 0 wait time. We have them in stock. So this is not something that you order and hope that they create and build one for you, and 5 months down the line it's too late. No, we've got these in stock ready to fly out the door.
To go back on the customer feedback, this was design number 2. Our first design, we had the motor off to the side of it. We sent it out for some beta testing. The first feedback we got is the scope is so weight sensitive, you can't put it on the side. I think you're gonna have some bouncing issues. You need to redesign your bracket to go up top. So what we did, we just redesigned the back bracket to go up top instead of off to the side, because we took their feedback. And then we had another guy who said, you got to come up top. You can't come off to the side. So we end up doing, again, took that feedback and just built a motor, designed it to go up top so it's not weight sensitive.
So how do we control these motor focusers, not just specifically the RedCat, but any of the motor focusers, stuff like power and all that stuff?
I'm going to click on our electronic focusing kit tab. And then I'm going to click on this is our newest electronic focusing system. Starlight Instruments EFS means electronic focusing system. We're not creative on names or anything. We just make it simple. This is a great, cost-effective little system. It comes standard with the hub, with the hand control, the cables, all the drivers, ASCOM compliant for $265. And then you add your motor to it, whether the motor for the RedCat or whether it be one of our standard handy motors for our focusers. So for $600 for a conventional setup, you can do software. RedCat motors a little bit cheaper because there's doesn't have the fine focus knob, so that's only $265. So in that case, it's $530 to do a setup for that. But all those motors still have the availability to manually control them by disengaging the clutch by turning the end of the motor housing 180 degrees.
So basically, you can't just buy the motor, you also have to get the control box, essentially.
That is correct. It's one of those things. I know some of the newer motors are out there that are a motor only. I understand cabling is a huge issue, but we're not at that point yet to make that change. Or that'll probably be a project in the next early 2021 we will tackle. But for right now, for repeatability, I feel much more confident in having an actual control box instead of trying to put so many cables or have the circuit board do so many different things. You end up failing on a lot of them just because it's trying to do too many things. Whether it be a power supply. One thing customers need to understand, if they're running too much power, they're going to burn something up long term. If you're trying to run one of my motors through a Pegasus setup, yes, it can do it. Will it do it long term? It will not. You're running too much power. You're doubling your power supply to it. You will burn my circuit board up.
Okay. So that's the answer to that one. Yep. Somebody's asking, can I use the controller I purchased via Starizona to control the focus motor?
Yes and no. And I should say no, and here's why. I'm going to back up one page. We have 3 different systems. The MicroTouch is our first system I'm going to show. This is an all-in-one system where the hub hand control is one system. It's a little bulky box. The benefit of this, it's a one-size-fits-all. There is no changes, no different. You can't add anything to it. The problem with this is it uses one of our square box motors, which is a unipolar motor. All of our handy motors are bipolar. So the software on the Starizona MicroTouch kits will not run our handy motors of any sort because they are bipolar motors. So it's just how the motors are powered is what unipolar and bipolar means. So if somebody has a MicroTouch system, it will not work with our HSM or our PosiDrive motors. I'll back up one page. Yep. Then we'll go to our Focuser Boss. Focuser Boss, we came out in, I think, 2012. It's geared probably more for the high end because you can do so many different things with it. It comes with the control box. Then you add the motor. You can control this system through a Wi-Fi device. So if you have a smart pad or a smartphone or a tablet, you can control it. If in that case, the hand controllers are somewhat not as needed because you can pull out your phone. But the biggest advantage this has, it can control 2 focusers at the same time.
So I'm going to point this out. This is where the one time for some of you is where a external box actually has an advantage over having 2 focusers with built-in stuff. So you remember Chuck was talking about his USB hub issue where he had hub on top of a hub and so forth and so on. this is the great part about where the focus boss comes in. And I can say this because I was using this in this fashion. You have two focusers plugged in, and I don't mean two separate running rigs. I'm talking one rig. So I have an SET and I have another scope piggyback, whether it be a guide scope or whatever. And I had focuser motor on that, focuser motor on that. Connecting it through the Focus Boss 2, it meant that everything goes into one box and then one wire comes back out, as opposed to having two sets of power coming out, two wires coming out, and then trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to get all of this back to my desk inside the house. That's where the Focus Boss does make a better situation, or an external box, should I say, a better situation if you have these multiple setups that have different things all over the place.
Sure. The other advantage coming on for the software side, not so much a cabling side. If you have a refractor, your steps, I'll use round numbers, are going to be from 0 to 10,000, and you have an SCT. Your steps are 0 to 999,000. If you have to motorize both of them, you're going to have to clear, if you use one laptop, you're going to have to clear out your presets when you switch back and forth. What the Focuser Boss with the second input does is you don't have to clear those presets out. You don't have to worry about changing your presets. Well, if my SCT numbers are in there at 999,000, but I'm running my refractor because I forgot to clear out my maximum travel, I'm going to overrun that travel. The motor will keep moving until it reaches that count. In turn, it's going to start stripping gears out or just keep moving. It's going to start compromising something long term. Having two setups, you don't have to worry about that because your SCT will be Focuser 1, your refractor will be Focuser 2. Now you don't have to worry about changing your numbers out each and every time at 2 in the morning.
Oh yeah, that's right. You can also do that too. I forgot about that part of the function. I didn't use it like that. That was the funny thing. I genuinely controlled two focusers.
Yeah, but that's the biggest selling point that I use for the Optec. Whether they have two setups on one rig or two rigs next to each other, if they're want to control them, get one box and just use Focuser 1 for 1, Focuser 2 for 2, and just toggle back and forth. And that's how you don't makes it cleaner. You don't have to worry about changing your presets.
I didn't think of it that way. I honestly didn't. I never used it like that. That's why. So I'm glad I learned something there.
So you learned something new today.
Exactly. Well, usually I learn something new when I talk to you. Okay, so we've probably got about 5 more minutes left before we run off for a break. Let's just cover some of the other minor products that you guys have while we're here. So I'm not going to cover silly things like end caps and coma correctors, but let's have a look at the collimation stuff real fast. I know a lot of you always have questions about collimation and how this and how that. We're not going to dig into this. We'll do this or we'll save it for another day. But you guys took over Howie Glatter, and now you guys are the people that manufacture Howie Glatter laser collimators. Yes.
Seeing Howie at all the different shows, whether it be Just Neat or Winter Star Party, Okie Tex, Texas Star Party, the show at Tucson when they had that, or we got to know Howie very well. And we started machining some parts for him because we understood his tolerances, his quality control. So when we started machining parts for him, we built a very good relationship. Unfortunately, when his health started declining, which would be 3 years ago now, he had passed on. We bought the business from him before he died. So we tried to keep his quality standards. He was an incredible designer, incredible technician, but he was probably the worst record keeper there was. He had no records on anything. So we had to reverse engineer everything. So people want to know why it took us a year to have more parts after we took over the business. We had to find out where he bought the lasers from, where he bought some of the integral parts from. And so we were able to copy all that over now. So yes, we do everything in-house now with the lasers, machine the bodies, do all the assembly in-house now, and test each and every one before we sell them.
Yeah, I got 2 quick questions here. What is a good replacement for the unipolar motor on an SCT?
On a unipolar motor would be what we call our MSM, micro stepper motor. That's our square box motors. That's the only motor that we have that's unipolar. And on an SCT, if they have my microfocuser, it would be the MSM 20.
Right, so obviously somebody's got one of those Star Zona control boxes and needs to replace the motor, so that would be your best bet.
Yeah.
Does the Focus Boss 2 have backlash compensation?
Yes, it does. So we preset them at 40, and depending on what they're using, their image train setup, that number can be adjusted as well. But we preset them at 40, which takes care about any problem there is. But every once in a while, they need to be expanded just a little bit, depending on their age of the focuser and their setup itself.
You know, I got to say that a lot of people don't realize that in the software for a lot of these motorized focusers that you do have to look into some of these settings like backlash compensation. Too many times have I seen people complain about buying a product, plugging it all in, and not checking these minor little tweaks and settings. So again, I always implore you guys to look through some of these things. Don't overthink it though, because then you can end up putting more problems back in than you really need to. But generally speaking, I think everything that I've ever used with Starlight Instruments, I can use it pretty much out of the box. Well, I mean, I've got to plug it in first, but you can pretty much use it out of the box without too much aggravation, because the tolerances, the time you take, the amount of time you guys have spent doing this, and this is the difference. Some of these focusers, motorized focusers out there and companies that make this stuff have only been around for a year, 2 years. They don't have the experience. You guys have been around for God knows how long, 2006. You know what you're doing. And that is, to me, the most important thing.
What the biggest question that I ask people, whether it be a motor driver or even another focuser, if you have a problem, who do you contact? Do you contact the dealer? Do you contact the OEM distributor? Or if you have our products, you contact Starlight, or you end up and actually contact me. And if I don't have all the answers, but through the relationships, I will refer them, if I can't answer them or we can't answer them, to somebody who is more experienced with that telescope, that mount, that setup, that software. I'll refer them to those people, and they will help them out as well. That's what building relationships is all about, in business and as well as in personal as well.
Speaking of building up relationships and talking to you, how do we do that?
As far as contact me?
Yeah.
Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, at starlightinstruments.com, or support@starlightinstruments.com. Ultimately, they both come to me. So
I believe the contact information is also on the website too, right?
Yes. If we go down to contact us page,
Ta-da!
they can find the support@starlightinstruments.com, which ultimately comes to me anyhow. So that's why if somebody calls, emails, they're going to get me one way or another, because the emails ultimately filter into me doing the tech and the service side of things. And my motto is, in business, doesn't matter if you're running a restaurant or whatever you do, the service must outperform the product. So we have pretty good products, I've been told once or twice. So I have some pretty big shoes to fill to meet those needs for customers.
Yeah, I'm not saying this from a sales standpoint or trying to make anybody at home buy this, but by far and wide, out of every focuser that I've ever owned, bought, utilized, used, I think Feather Touch has set the bar for focusers at the end of the day. People don't compare your focusers to anything. People compare their focusers to yours. That's a place that, and it says a lot. And this is a prime example, like when we were talking about with Chuck, is some of these things that you look at in the industry, you look at it, oh my God, how much is this going to cost me? Why is this thing so expensive? These guys over here make it for $200-300 cheaper, whatever. The point being here is you're not paying for the quality, so to speak. You're paying for the service. You're paying for the support. You're paying for the years of experience that has gone into producing such a fantastic product. And this is the thing, you guys have made, set the bar for all of this. So if you guys are looking into buying a focuser or thinking about it, or you think that you have problems with your existing focuser and need some advice, I strongly recommend that you take a look at Starlight Instruments in order to solve those types of needs. And again, at telescopes.net, we do sell all of Starlight Instruments products. More often than not, we probably have it already in inventory. So if you have questions that you want to ask Wayne, don't hesitate to get in touch with him. You can either buy it from him or you can buy it from us. It kind of makes no real difference to me. As long as you're getting something that you actually need. That's what we're here for. We're here to help, basically. All right. I believe we have a 15-minute break scheduled. So Greg Marshall will be on next. I can see him in the chat doing his chat thing, being sneaky in the background, so I know he's awake. So we're going to take a quick 15-minute break, and we will be back in about 15 minutes. Wayne, any last-minute comments?
What you said was perfect. We don't care where you buy the focusers from, as long as you get them. But if you have any questions, we're as much as I want people to be an impulse, we're not an impulse company. Do your research. Don't let price be your #1 concern. It has to be figured into your equation, but do your research. And if you're going to keep that scope for 10 years, then you amortize that price over 10 years versus buying 2 or 3 different focusers, which you'll spend more in the long run anyhow.
Exactly. And again, if you do get stuck, if you have focusers like this and you want information about which adapter, and if you find the website difficult to navigate for whatever strange reason, do not hesitate to get in touch with any of us, either Wayne or us over at telescopes.net. We are here to help you. All right, so we're going to go run off for our quick break. We'll be back in 15 minutes. I highly suggest you guys go to the bathroom if you haven't already, because that's what we're probably going to do. So we will be right back.